Which combat patrol is the best?
Fucking bits.
I'll be using our pricing and values post from the website, and we'll put the link into the description and also the comments. So if you want to look at this yourself or get some links to where you can find your own, you'll be able to do that from this article here. So just going over the basics, you probably already know this, but you know, the 40k combat patrols are basically the replacement for the start collecting boxes, which came out starting in about 2016. Which themselves replaced the battle forces, which weren't battle forces. They were smaller boxes like the start collecting boxes 20 years ago. And what we know as battle forces today were called strike forces. Confused yet? Good. GW likes it that way. That's why we got a job. So we can explain these things and help you all out a little bit more. Be better with your hobby dollars, I suppose. So the combat patrols are all $160. And for the most part, they're all actually pretty good. It is a separate game mode now in Warhammer 10th edition. And each one has free downloads, so you can get all the stat cards and the different things. And they actually try to balance them pretty well, which has met with varying degrees of success, I suppose. And maybe that's why they come out with new ones. I don't exactly know. I don't honestly keep up with games of combat patrol, but I know it is popular and some folks do it, and a lot of people getting into the hobby kind of start here. So that's really cool to see. So there is some, you know, just things that are going to be completely different from these rules as opposed to the, you know, actual match play rules. And there is a whole bunch of free downloads and things which we actually link to in this article to where you can get all of those rules too. Now, from what I've seen, there's always going to be imbalances when it comes to the elite type stuff like the Custodies or the Space Marines compared to like other box sets, but that's just the way it kind of happens in game too. So I wouldn't be too upset about it. You know, you just got to play to have fun and get your stuff hobbied on and, you know, build up to playing in bigger games if you're just starting out. Now, when it comes to the pricing and values, we broke down a lot of stuff here. Like I said, currently they're all $160. And in this chart, you can see where the number of models and the approximate value that comes in each box. Now, value is obviously subjective, of course, because in some cases there's going to be like upgrade sprues or half squads and things like that are a little bit tough to put an exact price on, but in the past we've kind of seen how GW does it, so we have a little bit of a basis to kind of go off of. You'll also notice in this article here that some of the stuff is out of print, like the first Dark Angels Combat Patrol box is already out of print, the Adeptus Mechanicus one and the Space Marines one, just for starters. We assume the Tau one's gonna also be out of print when the new Tau book comes out, probably shortly after this video releases. Value-wise, you know, looking at all of them, if you just look at straight value on the chart here, you would probably say, hey, the Genestealer Cults one's probably the best value-wise, like maybe I should play that. And you probably wouldn't be wrong per se. The second highest value looks to be the Sisters of Battle, I think. That one is a little bit of a misnomer because that box is basically half of the Army box that came out in 2019, or the one at the Black Friday they came out with a lot of the push fit models that aren't full squads, which is a little bit of a bummer too, I suppose. It's hard to price that stuff based off of the percentage of models in that box versus how they come in the squads, right? So it's just really weird. That's just a really weird offering that I think if you were going to want to start out Sisters of Battle, maybe pick one of these up, maybe, but it's probably better off starting somewhere else, like trying to get one of the battle forces per se. And that's actually another good point that we should talk about too, is that the best way to pair these combat patrols isn't necessarily to buy a combat patrol and then buy other squads. Buying a combat patrol and adding it to a battle force is usually pretty good value, because at that point you're getting super discounted rates on all of those models, and then at that point all you need is potentially the rules book if you do want to buy it. You don't have to. There's resources out there to get the items, either the rules either through the app or using online, you know, places and websites out there that you can just Google it and find these things. But you know, if you're the type of person that wants the book, hey, that's cool. Go ahead and pick up the book and go to town, rock on with it, right? So then the other stuff is the Chaos Demons box, which actually right now is doing pretty well in the meta. I mean, it's mostly Khorne Demons, but those guys are actually hit like a ton of bricks, believe it or not. And then you've got the Genestealer Cults, which aren't necessarily the easiest models and faction to play since they've pretty much come out, but they're coolest. You know, they've got all sorts of different units, and you get a ton of stuff in here. I think you get 6 units in this box. The same with demons, or demons might be 5, I forget, but it's still a lot of stuff. And then, unfortunately, as we start getting into the more recent combat patrols in 2023 and now 2024, the values start to kind of go down, which is kind of sad, to be quite honest. These ones in here that we have asterisks for, like the Tyranids and the Space Marines, I'm going to show you why that is here in a second. And then the Necron one as well also has an asterisk, and besides just these ones that we don't have a value listed, the Necrons is probably the lowest, because that actually has 1-for-1 models that were released separately that didn't come out of, like, I guess, a box set. So this is what I was talking about here. The Tyranid Combat Patrol is basically half of the Leviathan box. Well, less than half of the Leviathan box. It's actually missing some of the units there. So in theory, it's just better off buying a Leviathan box, because at the price you pay, $160 for this, you could put an extra maybe $40 at the current time with this and get all of the Tyranid models that come in the Leviathan box, plus all the Space Marine models that come in the Leviathan box, which are the other combat patrol underneath it right here. That, again, I mean, it's cool, but it's cool that they have this, but it's not the greatest. Unless you miss Leviathan and you can't find Leviathan and you don't want to put out, you know, the 200, or maybe it's even higher now. I don't quite know. I see them on the secondary market quite frequently, but I kind of don't notice the price. But last I paid attention to it, it wasn't much more than the retail price was when this set came out for release for 10th edition there in 2023. Now the Necron one is a little bit better of an offering, not by much, because it has mostly stuff that came in the old Dark Imperium box, or excuse me, not Dark Imperium box, the Necron versus Space Marine box that came out in 2020. That box, I mean, it's not bad, and that's what the Warriors are actually from that box, but you're gonna have a tough time finding them. It was Indominus, that was the box. The Walker isn't, that is its own kit. That wasn't the one that came in the Indominus box. You actually can't find that Walker besides the Indominus box anymore, so I'm sure it's going for a premium at this point. But unfortunately, at 160, as you can see here, value-wise, there just isn't a whole lot going on here. It's about $38, which is roughly the price of the Necron Overlord. So if you don't need any of this stuff, it's probably better off trying to find one of the battle forces from Christmas last year. But if you can't, I understand that they are a little bit tougher to find there. There might be more Necron stuff coming out in the near future. It's just kind of really hard to say. So we break down a few more of the things that have come out in 2023, like the new Adeptus Mechanicus one, which isn't too bad a value, and then of course the new Dark Angels. And this is what I was talking about with some weird stuff in here. Like, so first off, you've got the Primaris upgrade sprues, which are $15 each on G site. So in theory, that's worth $30, but is it, you know, not to everybody, I suppose. And then you've got like half of a squad of Hellblasters. And in the past, Games Workshop called these combat patrols as well. Confused yet? Again, it's tough not to be, but the half squads were originally called combat patrols. This is a half squad, and GW did price them way back in 2017 at $35. So the main squad's $60. The half squad you would think would be $30, but it actually was $35 in GW money. It is what it is, I suppose. But this one ain't bad if you're looking for some Dark Angel models. But if you don't play Dark Angels, this probably isn't worth the pickup, because you're blowing $30 of value in the Primaris upgrade sprues. So then if we start talking about, well, which one of these actually has the best value of them all, it's, you know, it's kind of subjective, because usefulness wise, you could probably say that Dark Eldar have the best one, because everything in that box you generally are going to use in a game with Dark Eldar miniatures. I mean, in theory, you're definitely going to use the Raider. You're probably going to use the Incubi. You might not like the Archon model, but he's viable and you probably need to take one. The Kabalite Warriors you're definitely going to use. The Ravager, I could see where maybe you wouldn't use that. Maybe just taking 2 Raiders and like 4 Venoms at this point in 10th edition. It's really kind of hard to say. But I think at the total MSRP savings in here at $100, it's a really good average savings, and I feel like you're going to use most of these models in here. Another one worth talking about is probably the Death Guard box, but unless you need Poxwalkers, you kind of don't get a lot of value. So you kind of see where each one of these boxes goes. It's like there's a plus and a con, And it's like, if you don't need the things in here, it's probably not worth it. But if you do, then it's totally worth it. And if you're starting out, you totally need some of everything. So you might as well just buy it there. And then the Death Watch and the Grey Knights ones are pretty much the worst, I guess, in my opinion, in general. Maybe just because if you don't need the characters, there's already a low value. And if you don't need the characters, then there's even less value in there to begin with. You might as well just plug and play and pick some stuff that you want just from those factions, not including the combat patrols themselves. So that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching my video on 40k combat patrols, updated pricing and values, and also probably our thoughts on which one is the best versus which one's kind of the worst currently here in 10th edition. Of course, prices can always change and things like that, and sometimes these also go on sale, so make sure you check out the article in the comments and also in the description below to get the most up-to-date information for all of the Warhammer combat patrols. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our future videos.